Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. BAM Weather Meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update and the latest on Hurricane Melissa as it barrels towards Jamaica this morning. I want to start there, and then we will get into the extended range forecast, but I certainly want to highlight this because this is, just to be frank, a very dire situation here for Jamaica as this storm moves northward towards it this morning and into early this afternoon. Here's a look at the latest satellite imagery. Gosh, you can just see just how defined the eye is. It's never good when you see such a defined storm, such a symmetrical storm moving right towards a coastal area. And right now, this is a historic storm for Jamaica. It'll be the strongest storm that's ever made landfall for this country in recorded history. 180 mile per hour sustained winds on the latest observations. The hurricane hunters were in the storm just in the past 20 minutes or so, finding pressure readings of under 900 millibars. So really starting to approach very, very rare territory, not only obviously for Jamaica, but for the Atlantic Ocean in general. This is one of the strongest storms in recorded history at this point, given the intensity of it. And again, just a slow-moving storm as well. So again, when I say that it's a dire situation, I'm not exaggerating, because this is a slow-moving storm. We're going to see widespread impacts across the island, landslides, catastrophic flooding, storm surge, and then again, just the winds alone going to cause major damage here. So certainly our thoughts and prayers with anybody that is there on the island, that lives there, that's visiting, certainly hoping that they can make it through the storm okay as it pushes through today. Taking a look here, here's the latest forecast, guys, as of this morning. You can see, again, still expected to make landfall as we work into this afternoon with winds over 165 miles per hour. I would imagine that based off of the latest indications, it's probably going to end up making landfall stronger than 167 miles per hour. It's probably going to be closer to 175 or 180 based off the latest indications. It will then make landfall again in Cuba, not to ignore Cuba here. It'll be a Category 4 storm at landfall as we work into tonight and tomorrow morning as it moves through Cuba, and then eventually the Bahamas, potentially a third landfall there, and then out to sea as it works towards Bermuda eventually, as we work later into this week and into the weekend, out to sea away from the U.S. coast. Getting into the extended range forecast here, guys, here's a look at the latest idea as we work over the next 2 weeks. You can see here favoring cooler than normal temperatures as we've been discussing across the south and east part of the United States. It's going to lead to demand a little bit closer to that 30-year normal. The only thing keeping us from bumping up further will be the western portion of the country, where much above normal temperatures will sit. But for a lot of these areas along the east coast, cooler to much cooler than normal temperatures will be the story over the next 7 days. That will linger into the week 2 time frame, but we've certainly had some trends that I want to highlight over the past couple of runs, really the last 3 runs at this point, consistently warmer trends in the week 2 time frame with the model guidance. And this is especially November 6th and beyond, let's say. Data trying to move this milder air east a little bit faster than the initial indications, and you can see the latest forecast here for the 4th to the 10th is milder in a more widespread fashion. We've been expecting this, but this is faster by 3 days or so than the initial idea. There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, I think our tropical forcing MJO phase 6, or our warmer MJO phase, arriving a little bit faster. That being said, I do see a cold front in here around the 6th to the 8th that I don't think the models are picking up on very well. In this blue circled area, I would still be watching for colder trends to kind of correct back a little bit over the next several runs, especially on the EPS, but on the GEFS as well. So we're going to continue to run a little bit higher with demand versus the model data in week 2, but I do think increasingly warmer the further out we go into the month of November. In terms of rainfall potential in the short term, guys, you can see this upper level low going to spread across the lower Ohio Valley into the Tennessee Valley, and then especially up the East Coast for an impactful storm leading into Halloween. You can see some heavy rainfall totals, 1-2 inches plus in here the next 7 days. The further west that you go, the drier that we will be as the storm system moves further to the east. Certainly some drought condition areas up in northern Indiana, northern Illinois getting skipped out. Once again, it just seems like that has been the theme as we've gone throughout this fall. In terms of the overall progression, I want to highlight here, guys, where we will start to see this warm up. And so, again, cooler shots of air persisting out through the start of November. You can start to see model data trying to spread a little bit of the warmth eastward into the Midwest as we work towards the 3rd and the 4th, reinforcing cold front here around the 4th to the 5th of the month as we've been anticipating. Cooler than normal conditions will linger on the East Coast. You know, if you're looking at demand specifically up the East Coast, it should continue to run higher than normal out through about the 6th or the 7th. This is when the data around the 7th really starts to spread this warmth further to the east. You can see that in here. GEFS trying to see maybe this cooler air behind the front in the northeast. Again, I think this is where maybe model data can trend a little bit cooler mid to late week 2. But generally speaking, beyond that, you can certainly see warmth is going to be the theme as we work towards the midway point of November. In terms of precipitation, as we go throughout this pattern, I think that we continue with the active storm track across parts of the Great Lakes, the interior northeast, parts of the Ohio Valley, and then drier across parts of the western and the southwestern plains and through the desert southwest. Very La Nina-like pattern, starting to see that show up a little bit better. In terms of the upper level pattern as we get into the 6 to 10 or the November 6th to 10th time frame, this is very, very similar to the MJO Phase 6 analog we showed last week. You can see cooler air here near Alaska, cooler air maybe in the northeast and just south of Greenland, warmer air building in across the United States. Here's a look at that MJO Phase 6 analog. You can see kind of that omega block type of a signal, very similar to what the data is indicating in the extended range. And if we take a look at the latest forecast with the tropical forcing and the MJO, you can see a very slow movement through MJO Phase 6 and into 7. This is going to be our predominant pattern driver as we work into the middle part of November. It's kind of slowing to a crawl as we go through Phase 6 and Phase 7. If this was December, this would be an extremely warm start. It's going to be a warm middle of November, but it'd be even warmer compared to normal into December. Some of our warmest Decembers on record saw MJO phases 6 and 7. You think back to 2021, that's exactly what it did in December of that year. However, because it's November and because we should keep this moving, there is going to be another change down the road. We expect another change down the road as we work into Phase 8 and eventually Phase 1. But for the time being, we're going to be stuck in these warmer phases, and if you take a look at what that typically means for the middle part of November, especially when you factor in the global winds weakening again, it's warm. This is a very, very warm signal. It might be even a little bit too warm on the analog here. There's not a ton of dates that match up closely. Not a lot of years that had a similar progression to this year. But overall, mild is the theme for the middle part of November. And the data supports that as well. You take a look at the EPS Weekly. It's got a very warm signal across the United States. Take a look at the GEFS Weekly. It's got a very warm signal across the United States. There's just no reason to disagree with this idea as we go into the weeks 3 and 4 time frame. Out through at least the 25th of the month, I would say a very mild signal for the U.S. as a whole. What does that mean in terms of precipitation? Well, we take a look here at MJO phases 6 and 7. It does favor more activity. You can see the northern stream across the north central part of the country, secondary stream through parts of the Ohio Valley into the Midwest and the Great Lakes. Phase 7, relatively active as well across the northern U.S. Generally, I would say if there's a drier area pretty consistently, it's the southwest U.S. or the southwest plains, probably the area that's going to be skipped out on the better moisture chances. I will say EPS Weekly is a little bit wetter than those analogs. I think it's probably a little bit too wet, but you can see generally where maybe this corridor of moisture is going to be more frequent across parts of the Midwest, Great Lakes, maybe parts of the Ohio Valley, and parts of the northern tier of the United States. Drier the further south and west that you go. With all that in mind, here's our outlook for weeks 3 and 4. November 11th to 24th, favoring a warmer than normal pattern. Now, I'm not as widespread with the much above normal temperatures as the analogs that we showed because there's still some high latitude blocking. You know, the polar vortex is relatively weak right now. We still have higher pressure over the Arctic and over Greenland, and so I think it will be challenging to get consistently much to extremely above normal temperatures Do I think it's a mild pattern? Yes, I do. But there can still be some storm systems and some volatility in here that prevent it from averaging out in a record-breaking fashion, if you will, in terms of the warmth. In terms of precipitation, above normal moisture from parts of northeast Texas up through the Midwest, Great Lakes, Northern Plains, and parts of the Pacific Northwest. Before we go, I want to talk about our updated November forecast and what we are seeing as we head into December. Right now, this is really the key. It's what does the MJO do? What is the timing of it? I would say the biggest uncertainty heading through November is just the speed that the MJO moves. The faster we can get through 6 and 7, the quicker the cooler air will come back. The slower we move, the longer the warmth is going to linger. If we take a look at the CFS here, it's trying to get into MJO Phase 8 by the 20th to the 24th of the month, right and through here. I suspect it might be a little bit too fast, but it is seeing that signal. If you take a look at the GEFS, same type of thing. It's a little bit slower than the CFS, but by the last week of November, all of this upward motion between 60 west and 0, the prime meridian there, is going to favor MJO Phase 8. Again, that should favor a transition back to some cooler air down the road. I think the big question is it the last week of November? Is it the first week of December? The EPS is pretty slow with it, but it is actually, if you look at its upper level pattern, it is actually trying to see it. If we look at another pattern driver, our global winds, the drop, while in the short term, it's probably going to aid the MJO in the warmer risk. About 3 weeks after our drop, we should start to see the influence of a negative AAM being a cooler signal again. And so post November 26th, the signal should increase for cooler air. And so, I think the last week of November, it's probably a transitional period where we start to transition from our mild mid-November pattern to a cooler early December pattern. And November to end the month is likely that transition period. If you recall last week, we have weak global winds into December. Historically, that favors colder air in general. Taking a look at the EPS weekly here, again, I think its MJO forecast is too slow, but it is seeing the pattern change. Last week of November and the start of December. It puts higher pressure up here over Greenland, over the Hudson Bay, over the Pacific Northwest. That would allow for cooler air to dive down into the eastern part of the country. So it is trying to hint at a pattern change. Again, biggest uncertainty I think at this point is just the timing of it. It's not whether it happens or not. That being said, because of the big warm up the middle part of November, we did warm up our November outlook, especially with maybe the warmth speeding up a little bit early in the month. I think November averages out warmer as a whole. Cooler to start the month, maybe cooler at the very end of the month, but I think the month averages out warmer than normal for much of the country as a whole. In terms of precipitation, La Nina-like setup here. Wetter to the north, wetter in the Ohio Valley, up towards the Great Lakes, upper Midwest, drier the further south that you go. In terms of our November heated demand forecast, we're at 520. That's going to be the 9th warmest of all time, similar to years like 2005, 2006, and 2011 in terms of our GWHDs for the month of November. So just to sum it all up, guys, we're cool right now. We're going to be cool the next 10 days. Milder air as we work after the first week of November, especially through much of November. Watching for a change again late November and especially into early December. I still see some cooler signals down the road there, pending the exact speed of the MJO. Guys, thank you for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day.